I recently launched my new AI tattoo application, and in this video I want to show you everything I learned, the tech stack I used, the mistakes I've made when publishing to the App Store, the annoying required things you need to implement when building an application, and my marketing strategy to actually get users. If you're building a mobile application, this video is going to save you a ton of time. Also, if you want the full source code of the application, it is actually available for pro members at codebases.dev, but more on that later. Let's jump in. For months now, I've been wanting to actually build and publish a real application. I've created so many prototypes for work, for my lessons, and for all the React Native and Expo videos I've made. But almost none of those applications ever made it to the App Store. And the truth is, I never took publishing seriously because, let me be honest, publishing an application is hard. It's way more than just writing code. Anyone who tells you just make an application and deploy it has clearly never gone through the process. You'll understand why in a moment. Now, of course, everyone's talking about AI right now, so naturally, I've been thinking about how to use it too. But the AI space is full of generic applications. There are AI wrappers everywhere, so you really have to pick a niche. Then Google released the new Gemini image models, aka Nano Banana. So I wanted to see how good it was. And just as a fun experiment, I asked it to put a Mike Tyson face tattoo on me, and it did it perfectly, and my mind was blown. That moment made me curious, so I went to the App Store and looked up AI tattoo, and boom, there was a lot of applications. So I downloaded around 10 of them, and honestly, a lot of them were pretty bad. Some weren't even using real AI, some were just using older or worse models. The UI was terrible, they spammed a paywall every time you tap a button, and some applications literally looked like they were built 5 years ago. No liquid glass, no native feel, nothing. So at that point, I had the brilliant idea of building another AI application. But this one would actually use Nano Banana properly, a simple wrapper, but great UX, real AI, and realistic try-on results. The goal was to let people try tattoos on their own skin, generate styles, explore ideas, iterate on designs, all with results that actually look real. And since Nano Banana is amazing at image editing, the outputs look incredibly realistic. And that's how AI Tattoo Try-On was born. Now let's talk about the tech stack. Alright, so let's talk about the tech stack that I decided to use for AI Tattoo Try-On. Of course, Expo, Expo Router, that's a no-brainer, I think. But for the native feel that I wanted to achieve for this application, I decided to use Expo UI. Although it is in beta at the moment, it still unlocks many great possibilities. So I wanted to show you how this looks on the App Store. I'm gonna leave the link in the description. By the way, I added a video of me to just quickly show how you can actually take a picture of yourself, prompt it, and I think this video is actually pretty slow, as you can see there. But anyways, you should be able to see like the difference. Like in this case, you can see how I have the tattoo try-on right away. But another thing that I wanted to show you is that if I close the application completely, I don't have it here, I'm going to open it. You notice that it's very fast. And this is because I'm not checking if the user is authenticated right away. The first thing that I want to do is just load stuff. So I'm using Legend List from Jay. He built this amazing list and you can scroll super fast and it looks amazing. I'm using Expo Image to load the images. We have, if I scroll quickly, you can see like a blur of the image and then it loads super quickly. We have navigation and all these buttons that you can see here. Of course, here I can pinch, and this is one of the gestures that, users expect to have, but you might see that we have liquid glass at the bottom and at the top right. Then we can use this tattoo, for example. This is going to take me to the playground screen. So Expo UI was used to have these context menus here. For example, I can select one option here. It's actually now possible to have these kind of elements super easily. Of course, I'm using a Canary version, an experimental feature. All this is experimental because glass effect, it's pretty new, but this looks pretty amazing to me. Now, for authentication, I'm using Better Auth. By the way, I'm already signed in, but let me just go back. I'm going to clear everything. This is all Expo UI. This screen, it's fully Swift UI. And I'm going to log out. And as you notice, you can still use the application even if you don't have an account. So let me quit, open it. super fast. We get a nice transition, and now it says sign in. So I can press that and then sign in. Better Auth is actually easy to integrate. It has a nice integration with Prisma. So in case you don't know, Prisma now offers a Postgres database fully managed for you. So you can just plug that into Better Auth and quickly save your users. So at the moment, I have 18,000 total operations that I've used this month. I haven't paid anything. It's actually a great way to get started because you get full control over your database. This means that I can connect to this database using any other database tool and be able to query my data, extract my data, make migrations, all that good stuff completely for free. Now, once you start using more, if you need more, you can actually just pay for it. Or at the end of the day, it's just a Postgres database and you could actually self-host it if you want to. But I would recommend just pay. By the way, I'm going to leave the link to Prisma and all the tools that I'm using here in the description so that you can check it out. For payments, of course, I'm using RevenueCat. And here I want to quickly show you how this looks now in production. At the moment, we have 356 customers and 2 people are actually paying, which is absolutely amazing. We have $15 monthly recurrent revenue, which is absolutely crazy to say. Then I'm using the Google Gemini API for the AI stuff. And I can actually quickly show you here the Gemini API usage. They have this AI studio that you can use to experiment, get your API keys and all that good stuff. So of course, all of this is being handled on the server using Expo API routes. And for hosting the API routes, I'm using Expo Application Services, the new EAS hosting. It's very easy to use. And in case you didn't know, you can now create full stack applications using Expo Router just by having a plus API file inside your app folder. This is how it looks. So for example, let me show you the Nano Banana. I have 2 API routes, one for text to image, and then text and image to image. And actually this is pretty extendable because you can send multiple images to the model and prompt it. So just as an example, this is how an API route looks like. I have my base URL, my API key, and we are using Zod to validate the request. The only thing that I'm requiring is a prompt. For analytics, I'm using Vexo. This is really nice because, in case you didn't know, you can use Vexo for React Native analytics in your application. It's really handy. It really allows you to see and learn about your application a lot. For example, they have something called session replays, and you can see here the devices that are using your application. So for example, let's select this one, and then you can press play and you're gonna see like how the user was interacting with your application. They actually gave me a promo code a long time ago. It's Beto10 to get a 10% discount. So if you want to try Vexo, just get 10% off on me by using my code. And of course, I'm using many other things that I might be missing here. And I'm using ngrok so that we can actually test the webhook with RevenueCat, because you have to use an HTTPS endpoint when testing the webhook. So in-app purchases, it's actually pretty painful to integrate. On top of that, you have to use a real device. But anyways, that's the stack. I also made an important decision early on: ship iOS first. And this is not because I don't care about Android, but because I wanted to validate the idea first. And also, I was using some iOS specific modules like Expo UI, the context menus. I created a custom Expo module view using Swift UI for the input of the playground. So all of that was iOS only. Importing them to Android was gonna take a real time. So I told myself, don't get too fancy, prove the idea first, and then we'll see. Now, creating a beautiful UI isn't easy. It's not just about colors, rounded corners. You need taste, attention to detail, and the ability to recognize when something feels bad or is hard to use. Personally, I've learned a lot of these things by following people and designers I admire on X. And I watch their demos, transitions, animations, All of that is inspiring. But one thing I've also realized is that simplicity is almost always better than complexity. It doesn't matter how fancy your animations are, if the flow is confusing, the application feels bad. So for this project, I really wanted the application to feel simple, clean, intuitive, and naturally native. That levels of polish is hard, and it requires being extremely detail oriented. And of course, this is a side project. I'm not able to dedicate 8 hours per day. That would be awesome if I could dedicate 8 hours per day to this project. It actually took me like around 2 months to land to get into this state of the application. 2 months only working on my free time. So let me tell you what helped me the most. Number one, always test on a real device. Right now, you can see me here, I'm using my real iPhone to test this. This method, for example, here, so if I close the application, open it again, we have this really nice transition. By the way, all that is using reanimated. But one thing that I realized by using a real device here is that me as a user, because I'm watching these videos of the application, I might want to pause the video, right? So if you tap on this, I added the functionality to tap. Now you might want to see the previous step. So you might be thinking, okay, I'm going to just swipe left. And it is actually possible to swipe. So it might be hard to see there, but you can just swipe and see the videos, pause and see my prompt, for example, there. Oops, I couldn't do it. But anyways, so this is pretty nice. Of course, always provide a way for the user to skip the boring stuff. So most users don't want to see the onboarding, they just want to learn by doing. Here we have a skip button that you can just press and it's going to take you directly to the application. Of course, you can always use this. I mainly added this switch for debugging, but it's really nice. Of course, also when you open the application for the first time, we're using haptics and it feels really nice as well on your hand. So you'll immediately start noticing things that you would never catch in a simulator. Another thing that really helped me polish my application was asking someone else to use my application. This is huge. I had my wife test the first version of the application and honestly, it was pretty bad. She didn't understand the flow, she didn't know how to prompt, I didn't have an onboarding, we had no suggestions, the UX wasn't obvious, and that's when it hit me. Things that seem obvious to the developer are almost never obvious to everyone else. People are busy, they don't care about your application, but if you can convince just one person to try it in front of you, you learn more in 5 minutes than in hours of building. It is uncomfortable, but absolutely worth it. I mentioned this briefly, but haptics matter more than you think. So showing off haptics is pretty hard, especially on a video. But this is another reason why you should use a real device. So like I said here in the onboarding, every time that I switch step here, I get a nice haptic feedback. And when I press a button, I have a nice animation and of course, nice haptic feedback as well. When I go to the application as well, we have a specific pattern that lets the user feel that premium feeling of the application. Now, most users won't even notice the haptics, they don't even know what is that, but they will feel that the application is high quality, even if they can't explain why. Those tiny details are the difference between okay and premium. So I would encourage you to go and download the application and follow along with me. For example, when you navigate to the new tattoo screen, we have a nice haptic pattern that really, I don't know, gives you a good vibe of that you are about to do something cool. And it's, it's responsive, is letting you know that, okay, we're ready for you to create something. At least that's my take. Now, none of these things are actually required, like having subtle animations that no one notices, haptics that maybe no one will notice. None of this is required, but these things make the entire application feel intentional. And these details take the longest time, but they make the biggest difference. And the playground uses a custom Swift UI view via Expo modules, which gives me native gestures. So if I do swipe up, boom, the keyboard is focused. If I tap outside, boom, the keyboard is dismissed. If I swipe up and then swipe down, here, the keyboard is dismissed. This is painfully to integrate in React Native. So the easiest solution that I found is just hosting a Swift UI view here, and then I don't have to care about anything else. So I can just tap here and it's going to focus the input. Now, since this is actually an Expo module and I was already doing this in Swift UI, Integrating Apple Intelligence was super easy. So if you notice here in devices that support it, we will show this magic wand. And then if you press it, it's going to be super fast because this is a local tiny LLM that lives on the iPhones. And then you can generate this kind of prompts. This will allow the user to discover things quickly, right? So they can just press, then we generate a new prompt, hit send, and we're going to generate a new tattoo. Okay, and I'm using my account that has reached the limit, but let me switch. Press again, hit submit, and this will get me started with 2 tabs. I'm now generating a new tattoo and I can see what the application can actually do. By the way, when I'm loading here, when we are loading the tattoo, I'm getting as well haptic feedback, which is really nice. You can switch between images super fast and you can iterate by just selecting it and then prompt it. Super fast. I implemented a cache for these images. These are saved in the file system using Expo file system, and we are just referencing them using a URL, file URL, instead of using, base64, which is what you get from the API. And then you can just clean your session by just exiting, and this will remove everything from the cache and free up the memory and just allow you to keep using the application. So doing that was actually a bit complex, but once you have that, the application feels very fast, like in this case, especially if you're using images. Now let's talk about money, payments, subscriptions, all the fun stuff. I've integrated Revenue Cat before, and yes, it took forever again. Everyone says in-app purchases are complicated, and they are right. When you deal with in-app purchases, you have to create certificates, create keys, test on a real device, test with a sandbox account, pray the sandbox will actually work, integrate webhooks, handle subscription renewals, prevent users from over-generating images, and make sure your margins don't disappear. Because remember, AI image generation costs money. Every single image costs money. So right now, the application has 3 tiers: Starter, Plus, and Pro. All of them come with generation limits to protect us from misuse. And because of the way the app works, we rely heavily on webhooks. When someone subscribes, our server creates a usage record for that billing period. And when they renew, we reset the counter. So all of that happens automatically in the background thanks to Revenue Cat webhooks. Now, all that is great, but actually was a pain to integrate. And it was mainly a pain because you need to have an HTTP server to test this. So I would highly recommend that if you can, use ngrok. And if you can't, test subscriptions on a separate iPhone, don't use your personal, or at least create a dedicated sandbox account on the App Store Connect, and then sign in with that user into your iPhone and then use that to subscribe. It is pretty painful because Revenue Cat won't allow you to delete a test account, and if you're using your personal, you can get it in a bad state that might be, that might make it harder to keep testing and harder to reset things. So be careful with that. By the way, funny story, when I was integrating Revenue Cat for my application, I actually had to go back and rewatch my own lesson from my React Native course to remember how I set it up the first time. And honestly, it made me pretty proud because this lesson is solid. I used my own tutorial to implement my own application. This tutorial is an hour long, but if you really want to learn how to implement in-app purchases, subscriptions, and how to do it properly, definitely check it out. I'm gonna leave the link in the description. Now let's talk about App Store rejections. Another painful part of building an application is actually publishing it. And it takes a lot of effort and you really have to follow Apple guidelines. Even though nobody actually reads them because they are huge and difficult to understand, but you need to be aware of some of the most important rules. For example, if your application uses Google Sign-in or any third-party authentication provider, Apple requires that you also support sign-in with Apple in your application. You must include a privacy policy and terms of service link in your sign-in screen, and if your application offers features that don't require an account, Apple expects users to be able to use those features without signing in. And that last one caused me a little trouble. In my case, for example, I was requiring the user to authenticate right away, even before they could actually see the tattoos that you can see here in the home screen. And since viewing tattoos on the home screen is not a paid feature, this is actually free. You can just come here and view the tattoos. This is just browsing, right? No API calls, no usage tracking. So Apple said that I should not force users to create accounts just to view those images. I should only require sign in when it becomes necessary, which in my application happens when the user wants to generate a tattoo or try one on. That part makes sense, and honestly it was a pain to fix because I already made my application forcing users to sign in, and then I was sure that everyone who was in these screens and tabs was going to be authenticated, but since I had to refactor that, now I need to take in count that users might be navigating these screens without authenticating. But for example, let's say that you like this tattoo. You can zoom here, by the way, pinching, use this tattoo. This is actually going to transform this tattoo to be a base 64 and load it in the playground so that we are ready for request to Nano Banana API. But in this case, because I'm not authenticated, you can see that I'm here, right? And I can still long press, share this image, pick a new one, take a photo with the camera, but I'm not able to do anything until I sign in. But here's a funny story, by the way. The version 1 of my application got approved with no issues, forcing users to authenticate. But then I submitted some updates with version 1.0.1 and then rejected it because they said that I needed to provide, a way to access the application without authentication. But this goes to show that sometimes it depends on who's reviewing your application. At the end of the day, real humans review your submissions, and different reviewers might interpret guidelines differently. So keep that in mind when publishing, it's part of the process. Now let's talk about marketing. After my application got approved and released, I thought the hard part is over. But very quickly I realized that marketing is actually the hard part. So I want to walk you through my full thinking process because I think this part is way more interesting than people realize, especially if you are planning to publish your own application. So here's how my marketing brain approached this. Here you can see the analytics of the application. Now, right after going live, I noticed a small spike in downloads. I didn't do anything, I didn't post. Well, I did post on X, but mostly for developers, right? Not people that want to use it. But you can see the spike here is not that big, right? And from what I've heard, Apple gives you new applications a tiny boost for visibility, just enough to get a handful of downloads. But after that boost, it slowed down. And this is when I realized that if I want people to use my application, I need real marketing strategy, right? We already have a bunch of the same applications in the store. They are pretty bad, but because they have been in the App Store for a long time, they rank better than my application. The next thing that I want to talk about is understanding the landscape. The main keyword I was targeting for my application is AI tattoo generator, which has a lot of traffic. If you just go to the App Store and search for AI tattoo generator, you'll notice there is an application paying for ads. The first result, by the way, I'm not a big fan of this application. I think it's pretty bad. That's not the only one. If you keep scrolling down, you'll find tons and tons of AI tattoo applications. So definitely a lot of competition. So even if my app is better, that doesn't matter if people can't find it. That led me to find my first strategy idea. The first thing I thought was, well, tattoo communities are huge on Reddit. There's a subreddit with almost 10 million people posting tattoos every day. Perfect target audience, right? Wrong. As soon as I started scrolling through the subreddit and reading the rules, I realized something important. People who love tattoos hate AI tattoos. Like, viscerally hate it. They see AI art as disrespectful to real tattoo artists or as a threat to their craft. So even getting real tattoo people to try the application is difficult. And on top of that, you can't promote your application, mentioning it gets removed, and linking to your application gets you banned instantly in these groups. Still, I wanted to try something and I ran a small experiment. $100 in Reddit ads targeting tattoo subreddits. It went nowhere. I mean, it was also a bad ad because I literally made it in 10 minutes during Thanksgiving dinner, but still the audience wasn't the right fit. So that strategy died quickly. Another strategy that I'm thinking about is social media. the one I'm avoiding but probably need to do. The plan here would be to grow the Try Tattoo app social accounts on X, Instagram, and TikTok. I mean, I haven't created the Instagram and TikTok, but I do have an X account for Try Tattoo app. And that would require me to post, and I'm actually doing that, which is pretty nice. I like to do it, but TikToks and videos like that, I think that would convert very well and grow more organically. But I'm a bit afraid of my time, but still I think I'm gonna give it a try. But I know this strategy works. It's probably the least likely to fail, so I'm thinking about it. Now, another strategy that I'm considering and I'm also excited about is Apple Search Ads. The logic is simple. If someone searches AI tattoo generator, tattoo design application, they have a high intent and they are already looking for something like my application. So showing up at the top could convert real well. So in case you didn't know, you can actually buy ads on the App Store. Like the first one, you can see that this is an ad. And I'm thinking on trying this. Of course, I don't have a bunch of money to spend here, but Apple gave me $100 in credits and I'm adding another 100 on my own. It's not a lot, but it's enough to run an experiment and gather data. If the app ends up generating more than the cost of ads, I can reinvest, scale slowly, and let the application pay for its own growth, but we'll see. I'll definitely share results in another video once I have data. Now, my overall take on marketing is that marketing is really hard and it's a skill I'm still learning. And this application has made me realize a few things. You can build the best app in the category and still struggle if no one sees it. Some niches don't want to use AI. Paid ads can work, but if your margins support them. Content creation works, but it takes effort and consistency. And you need multiple strategies, not just one. Now, I've been posting my progress on X and some people have provided really nice feedback. Like someone said, you should actually target mostly beginners and people that are considering a tattoo but are scared of trying it. And I think that's a great idea. My application right now shows pretty tough tattoos, right? Like your entire back with a full tattoo. Maybe no one will do that, right? So I have this idea of adding more beginner-friendly tattoos. And I actually started doing it, but we added aesthetic. And this actually was an idea from my sister, which looks more like the tattoos that you see all the time on the streets, right? Pretty minimalistic. That's aesthetic. We also have mini, which are mini tattoos. And I think these are great. And these are like the kind of things that I would create tattoos. I would create TikToks and reels about it because I think this is perfect for couples. We also added this couples section that just combines multiple tattoos for two people. I think this is a good way of, showing maybe couples that want to do this. I personally know a couple that got a tattoo like this. So definitely something to keep in mind. So as you can probably tell, building this application has been a journey. From the idea to the design to publishing to marketing, and it's been a mix of challenges and fun surprises. And honestly, I hope walking you through this process gives you a clearer picture of what it takes to shape a polished, high-quality application. Because right now, with how easy it is to spin up AI applications or low-effort wrappers, the thing that truly makes you stand out is quality. And I hope this encourages you to build something you are proud of too. And if you want to dive deeper, the full source code for the AI tattoo application is available inside codewithbeto.dev, along with my full React Native course, including the in-app purchases lesson I literally had to rewatch for this project, and step-by-step guides on publishing. So if you're serious about building applications, everything you need is there. I would also love to hear your questions specifically about marketing or app store publishing. If you want me to make a follow-up video once I gather more data, please let me know in the comments. I'm happy to share all of that. Or if you want to learn something about a specific thing that I mentioned in this video, please let me know in the comments as well. And of course, if you want to try the AI Tattoo app yourself, you can download it right now. The link is in the description. I hope you enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, please consider leaving a review. It really helps the application rank better. And as a thank you, if you send me a screenshot of your review, I'll add some free credits to your account. You can DM me on X or just mentioning me. I would be happy to give you some credits. Thanks for hanging out with me. Thank you for your support, and I'll keep you posted with more updates as this journey continues. Bye.